Okay, recording is in progress. Okay, so on that recording in progress note, I'll just start by welcoming everybody. So my name is Charles Levko. I'm a professor here at Lakehead University, and I live in Thunder Bay on Fort William traditional First Nation traditional territory. And I have been part of the Lakes, was one of the early joiners to the Lake Superior Living Labs Network, and it's been an amazing opportunity for me to meet all these wonderful people. Many of them are on this call, some I haven't met yet, and I'm very excited to be able to meet some of you today. So I just, by way of starting, I thought we could all just maybe take a breath, a deep breath. We come from different places, our busy lives, and sometimes it's really nice to just ground ourselves and be in this virtual space together. So maybe we can just start by kind of taking a breath, breathing in the air, hopefully the clean air of the place where you are. I had the beautiful pleasure and opportunity to travel down to to Duluth last weekend, and got to see the whole eastern side of the lake, which was incredible. So beautiful to breathe in that lake air. In most places, beautiful. So as we're breathing again, welcome everyone to our Lake Superior Living Labs Network Summit. I know there's lots of people who have been part of the network and some new folks. So I welcome all of you. I know we're joining from all kinds of places. And again, there's a virtual map. We can actually see where some of those places are, in Thunder Bay, in Duluth, in Houghton, in Sault Ste. Marie, and everywhere surrounding on the traditional territory of many Anishinaabe, Oji and Cree, Ojibwe and Cree communities and Métis historic settlements, several treaty areas that we're all part of: the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850, the Robinson Huron Treaty, 1854 Treaty, 1842 Treaty, 1826 Treaty, and of course, the lake itself, the Lake Superior watershed, which we'll be talking a lot about today. For those of you who are new to the Lake Superior Living Labs Network, Rachel Portinga, who I'll introduce in a moment, will be giving a bit of a much more kind of broader description of what's been going on and what folks are up to. But I'll just say very briefly, we started the Lake Superior Living Labs Network about 5 years ago now, really as a platform to connect academics, community groups, First Nations, Indigenous communities, nonprofit organizations, small businesses, to develop new partnerships and collaborative initiatives across the watershed. So really using that watershed as a kind of base for our work, not political borders, not different lines that we draw, but really looking at the watershed as an ecosystem, and all the different people that live, play, work in that watershed. And really, the Lake Superior Living Labs Network has been working with all kinds of new projects, with existing projects, lots of partners to increase the impact of sustainability-related teaching, research, action, with a focus on issues kind of at the nexus of food, water, and land, climate and energy, and individual and community well-being. So the network it exists because of all the amazing people that have been part of this work. I just want to very quickly point out our steering committee, who I think everyone's here, who has been kind of helping to just kind of guide things along as we go. We have Naren Cameron in Sault Ste. Marie. We have Lindsay Galway up here in Thunder Bay. I think Randy is here. I think he's here. Yeah, and Catherine down from Duluth, and Erica from Houghton. And of course, Rachel Portinga, who's been coordinating the network over the last number of years, and Courtney Vaughn, who's been helping out more recently. And there's lots more people to thank, and we'll maybe have time for that down the road. But I just wanted to kind of name them as we get to as we dive in. We're also at a bit of a transition point. We had a grant that has kind of got us to this point, and helped to kind of fund some of the work and some of the initial connections. But we're kind of moving into this new phase now that we have established the network. And I just wanted to, we'll talk a bit more about that today. But one of the things I wanted to do is encourage everyone to join our newsletter, which gets sent out a few times, maybe once every month or two. And it's really just, we bring together as many different, and there's a link in the chat there for you to sign up. It's a compilation or a curated newsletter that brings together different activities happening, events, sometimes updates on different projects, and not just stuff that we're working on. We really try to source that material from all over the place. And I know we've got a lot of folks have been really excited about that newsletter just because it does highlight, events kind of across the spectrum. So, and we want to keep that going as long as we can, because it's a great way to just keep us all connected, and keep everyone up to date with what's happening. The other thing I just wanted to do by way of introduction is just highlight the agenda for today. And again, I think Rachel might go through this in a bit more detail, or you can all look at it in more detail on the website, and we can put the link in the chat. But we're starting with a bit of a welcoming, and right now. After the welcoming, we have a panel on why watersheds matter, shared relationships and responsibilities for living well. And we'll start that at 10:30 Central Time, 11:30 Eastern Time. And then we'll take a break. And then we have 3 sets of basically 45-minute conversations, which will take place in breakout rooms. And it'll be a chance for folks to connect with each other based on a series of topics that we've identified based on what folks have identified they want to be discussing. So at 12 Central Time, 1 Eastern Time, the first 2 chats will be land-based and arts integrated education, and the second one will be sustainable and equitable food systems. At 1 Central Time and 2 Eastern Time, we'll have 2 new chats, one on climate action and energy transition, one on community health. And at 2 p.m. Central and 3 p.m. Eastern, we'll have 2 more chats on water and ecology, rural, and the second on rural regeneration. Of course, folks are welcome to come to all of those. If you have other things you need to do and you want to kind of pop in, pop out at different times in the day, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Nobody's taking attendance, but you're more than welcome, again, to be there to participate. These are mostly going to be open spaces with some facilitators and some guiding questions, just as a chance for everyone to, again, engage with each other, connect with each other, and share what they're doing. And that is, again, what we've been hearing folks really want. So we kind of created this whole agenda based on everyone's interest and ability to just connect. And then at 2:45 Central, 3:45 Eastern, we're going to be doing a short closing. And that will be the end of our formal day. And tonight, we have organized a screening of a documentary film, which I'm not, Rachel, you'll have to remind me how people get all those details. Maybe you emailed them out, right? Yeah, so they've been emailed out. But I'll just, I'm one of the filmmakers of that film. And so maybe I'll just kind of push it a little bit if folks want to see it. It's called Lake Superior, Our Helper, Stories from Batchewana First Nations. And it is a film that was made in partnership with Batchewana First Nation, and specifically former Chief Dean Sayers, myself, and a local filmmaker, and another Professor Kristen Lowett. And the story of the film basically walks through both the history of Batchewana and their fishing as part of their livelihood, as part of their ceremony, as part of their identity, but also some of the tensions with the state, the province of Ontario, the Canadian government, in terms of putting restrictions on what they are legally allowed to do or not do. So the film really walks through that story and where the community kind of has been, where they are now, and what their hopes for the future are. So it's about an hour, it's just over an hour, the film. And the way I think Rachel said she will email that link out. So it's you'll get a link, and I think the link is open for, is that, Rachel, 3 days? Did I get that right? 3 days. So you can use that link within 3 days to watch the film. And yeah, so please, you can do that. You can see that film and learn about and one of the many communities who has their traditional territory here on Lake Superior. And I think, so I keep looking to Rachel because she is the mastermind behind all of this. Rachel, I think that's the main part, right? Yes. Okay, great. So that's it. I want to turn to, we're really honored to have Liz Webkamigad from Bawating or Sault Ste. Marie here to kind of help us with our opening and our introductions and kind of bring us into this space together. So Liz, I will very happily turn it over to you.
Awesome, miigwech. Can you guys hear me okay? Can I get a thumbs up? We were talking about this morning, just as we touch base as a team, getting ready to start the day, and just, the peculiarities that happen with Zoom and then going to in person and back to Zoom and some of the things that we do. It was actually a good chuckle. So I want to officially extend my miigwech to the organizing committee for making a request for my assistance in terms of thoughts and collective energy right around the watershed that all of you have joined in on today for. I actually was a part of this way back in the startup when I was working at Algoma University. And so to be brought back in, Naren, I extend my to miigwech. She always pulls me in when there's something that I might be able to assist with. So miigwech for that sense of connection, how important that is. And I think probably every single one of us wanting to have that. So collectively today, we're talking about this beautiful gift from creation. Without any of it, none of us would be sustained. And so water is so important. And then, of course, land. And so I wish to acknowledge all of the land that all of us are coming from to gather today. How important and beautiful it is to know about Aki. This week we celebrated World Earth Day, to understand we have World Water Day. Like, we have so many days for us to give that formal recognition. But I think most importantly for me today, to start your gathering off, I just wanted us to collectively give thanks for what it is that we have in our life because of creation, because of the beauty of what we call Minoba Madzuin, the good life. And so I invite you in your own way to collectively think purposefully, mindfully about your day ahead, that we all come here with an open heart and an open mind to discuss ideas, share opportunities, and build networks, make sure that they're nice and strong so that the work that we do today, we keep in mind in our Anishinaabe teachings, we keep in mind that 7 generations from now, they will see the fruits of that work, whatever that work happens to be, whether it's education, advocacy, actual hands-on hard work to clean up something or to do something for the betterment of. And so I invite all of us to collectively put our minds and our hearts there. Wish to say Chimigwech Kinawaya, Chimigwech to all of our ancestors for everything that has been done so that we could do what we are doing today, because 7 generations ago, they were thinking about us. And I give thanks tonight. We were talking about this as well earlier. Tonight, Nokomis Gizis will be in full, what she does. Full moon is something that's really important to the water, important to all of the women around the world. And that's, something remarkable that it's happening on today, the day that you are gathering here. And here in Bawating, Sault Ste. Marie, Mishomis Gizis, the sun is shining. It's a little bit chilly, but that warmth of that Mishomis reminds us about the beauty of the season that we are now moving into, which is the growing season. And so for all of this, I give thanks. The collective that's sitting here today, may we do wonderful work and have the right, amount of whatever it is that's needed to get the job done. So please have a great gathering. I will see you at the end of the day. I may pop in here and there, just as Charles indicated, and certainly invite you to do the same if you need to step away, but please come back. And it's wonderful that Rachel has got this recorded. I imagine at some point the link will be available so that people can go back and, rewatch something or re-participate by listening while you're cooking supper sometime. So have a beautiful day, Chimigwech, and I will see you at the end of the day. Aha.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Liz, for helping to welcome us and helping us to just ground ourselves a little bit. I'm going to turn things over to Rachel so I can stop asking Rachel what I'm supposed to do, and Rachel can just do it herself. Rachel's going to give us a bit of an overview of kind of what we're doing here today and where we've been and where we're hoping to take us all on this journey of the day.
Okay, great. Is that screen coming through okay for everybody? Awesome, thank you. Gotta love the active thumbs up from everyone. Hi everyone, good morning. Thank you for being here. We've been planning this, but we've been working on it for a while, so really excited to have it go forward. As Charles said, my name's Rachel Portinga. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the coordinator for the Lake Superior Living Labs Network since the fall of 2019. So coming up on the, wrapping up 5 years here. And yes, those are the things. So I lived in Duluth previously, and have now lived in Thunder Bay. So I've while this network is a boundary crosser and crosses the US-Canada settler colonial boundary, my life also does that. And so that makes it an interesting perspective to be doing that work at the same time and navigating those things. So that's a helpful perspective for me as we do this work. So as Charles said, we've done a welcome and agenda today. So for the remainder of this session, I'm just going to briefly remind us of today's goals and the goals of this session. And then for folks in the room who haven't known about the Lake Superior Living Labs Network before, or maybe you just, a refresher is nice because we all have a lot going on. We'll run through the context of the work very briefly that we're doing, the 3 key approaches that we take, an overview of who's been involved, and then a summary of hub activities. So a lot of different projects in more localized places, and then also some watershed-wide projects and activities that we've done. And this is meant, well, we'll do that in a second. And then I'll summarize some research that I did last year as part of my dissertation, but is meant to inform the work of this group as well. And then we should have some time at the end for questions too. So today's goals in this session, we're really hoping to synthesize, share out, and celebrate the first 5 years of Lake Superior Living Labs Network. Anyone who has tried to organize a group of people before knows that it takes a lot of work. And so when you get some things done, it's really exciting and you want people to know about it and also feel appreciated for all the work that they've contributed. A very brief report back on that research. Then our panel will talk about watershed approaches and part of the reason we're doing that is because what the research showed me last year is that a lot of folks were like, well, I think it's interesting, but I don't do watershed stuff, right? Because we kind of put that into the ecology or the geology sort of category. And so a lot of what the network's trying to do is really expand the watershed setting for other things, other realms or themes or topics or disciplines that those words that we might put towards them. So if we think about food, or if we think about climate, or if we think about relationships, right? Those can happen at watershed scales or at watershed settings as well. And then the afternoon is really for folks to connect. Folks told me that repeatedly last summer, that's what they really wanted to be able to do. So this is our best effort at it right now in a fully virtual space since we're all spread out geographically. And all of this is, as Charles said, setting the stage for, we might not call it LSLLN 2.0, but a second iteration of this network. So what are our headwaters? Where have we been? The context of this work, as the folks in the room know, is that we have a lot of complex 21st century challenges facing us right now. These challenges are across climate and energy, transitioning, social and ecological determinants of health, land, water, and food, and the intersections where those come together. And a lot of this is shaped certainly globally, but in our Lake Superior watershed by capitalism and settler colonialism, which has shaped our landscape. So this has happened through extraction of what we might call natural resources, the removal of indigenous inhabitants and forced displacement. And this is all facilitated by the social contracts of borders, right, as we know, between the US, the Canada, states, provinces, reserves, reservations, all those systems have borders. Boundaries between our sectors, between disciplines, between cultures, generations, and many other boundaries we could continue to list. And then this concept of private and public, quote unquote, ownership of land. So in that context, the folks of the Living Labs Network have said, we'd like to try something a little more holistic, a little more, you know, constructive. So we come up with this nice sentence: the Living Labs Network works across sectors, disciplines, and geographies to bring socially just and ecologically sustainable research, teaching, and action to life in the Lake Superior watershed. And so that really helps sum up this other approach that we're trying to take and using, trying to address those challenges. So there's three key concepts that the Lake Superior Living Labs Network is guided by. The first is the Lake Superior watershed. So we can see that image on the right here. The watershed includes all of that land around the lake as well, where the water would flow into Lake Superior. This is a place-based approach. And another way of wording it would be that the watershed is a social ecological unit or a social ecological setting in which we collaborate. So instead of saying Northwestern Ontario or Minnesota or the North Shore of Wisconsin or the UP, we're saying the watershed is this social ecological place where we're collaborating. And water is flowing there, and so our connections can also and should also be flowing there. The second approach is the Living Lab approach. What we really mean by this is that we're learning by doing, which is another way of saying we're okay with making mistakes and we're trying things out and then reflecting on that, making space to reflect, making space to then revisit and do iterative processes where we think through what we're doing and how we can do better. And that also really key to that Living Labs component is co-creation with diverse partners. So trying to bring everyone to the table that has, you know, a role in this, a stake in this, an interest in this, and really seeing what we can do together. And then the third key concept is engaging just sustainabilities. This is the only big academic term and citation I have to this morning. Just sustainabilities is a concept proposed in the academic literature by Julian Ageman in the early 2000s. And it's really saying that we're centering justice in locally adapted sustainability actions. So that sustainabilities being plural is because those actions or solutions, as some might say, are going to be uniquely adapted to wherever location someone's happening. So they're going to look different in different places, but that centering of justice is really key to that concept. So when we put all three of those together, that's really what the network is about. This is an image that we have created and used to try to describe this. So if we start at the top center where we see those three blue circles, we see the words climate and energy, water, land, and food, and individual and community well-being. And we see that they're intersecting with one another, as we know that these systems do. As we follow that arrow to the left, where we see the orange circle, we see just sustainabilities in the center. So again, that key concept really shining through. And then the yellow circles represent research, action, governance, and teaching, which is more of the activities that we engage in. And then on the far right, we see an outline of the Lake Superior shoreline. And then we see these four key locations of Thunder Bay, Ontario, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Houghton, Michigan, and Duluth, Minnesota, where traditionally thus far as what we have been calling our hub locations, because as we started with academic and community partners, and so those were where the academic partners were housed, was at universities in those particular places. That is not to say that folks are not in our network from across the watershed or even beyond, but that's what our hubs, when we say hubs, that's what we mean are those four places. So who's been involved thus far? these images are not particularly important. There's no quiz at the end, but it does show a social network analysis image, and each node represents a person. And then the lines represent their communication on the left, and on the right, their joint program and planning. And then the different colors represent the different hubs. So you can see we might have different numbers of people in different hubs. They're collaborating or communicating with people within their hubs, but also across those hubs. And those relationships change depending on which activity is happening. With broad strokes, if we were going to apply, assign, adjectives to these categories of people, we would say they come from academia, the nonprofit sector, regional development folks, people who work at municipal operations, educational, people who are interested in education and do education, whether that be formally through the public school system or through a nonprofit model or a combination, and then Indigenous partners as well. Another way to show you who's been involved thus far is to throw up a bunch of logos on the screen and let you take a look. This list of logos is does not represent everyone, because as we all know, we maybe don't work somewhere or volunteer somewhere, or the work that we do might not be associated with a logo. We might just be a human who cares about this stuff. So it's an imperfect list, but we do want to say a big thank you to all the folks on this list, because they have been involved in some capacity and have contributed to various projects, which I'll outline briefly later. I guess I'll do it right now. So I forgot this was immediately next. So our hub projects and happenings, I have one slide for each hub. For more information on any of these projects, please pop into our website. Each hub has their own page and more details, videos, all those good things, descriptions, pictures, etc. So we're going to start in the east with the Sault Ste. Marie hub. I'll start at the top center here with the People's Garden collaborations. The People's Garden is housed at the Algoma University campus, where students and faculty and staff collaborate with community members as well on growing food and distributing and eating that food. So that has taken many iterations, and many projects have come out of that, involving different partners. If we move clockwise to the top right, we see Building Resilience Through Food Literacy project. This was a project coordinated by Dr. Laura Wiper at Algoma. And so students that were in a course with her in Algoma collaborated with other students at a Finnish university. They each created videos in small teams about food from home and what that meant for their resilience and eating that food, and then were able to share and collaborate with that other campus. The Earth Spirit Growing Kits, these were kits that were prepared through partnerships with Algoma and elders in the region, putting together packages of seeds of various foods and medicines that were then given to students. And then the Food Bank Farm and Algoma University cooperation has a few different a few different benefits have come out of that. But we see this collaboration here where students are shared across, materials are shared across, food is shared across. And so there's a memorandum of agreement where these two organizations are working together for the benefit of both parties. This particular image is of a growth chamber that they were able to work on and try to work on growing some greens in the winter season. And then on the left is the digital storytelling. This is a video that highlights 6 different folks in the Algoma hub or in the Sault Ste. Marie hub, and how they are doing this work in the Living Labs network. So the next 3 slides are more of just brief overviews. Again, more on the website for any of these if you're interested. The Houghton Hub is a little bit different approach. The Houghton Hub joined us after we had been around for a year or two. And so instead of focusing on a particular project or projects that I could name here, they really helped bring people together and support a strong focus on education and outreach initiatives that connect youth educators and community partners to create stewardship projects that support the health of the Lake Superior watershed. So this includes partners like the Lake Superior Stewardship Initiative, the Great Lakes Research Center at Michigan Tech, the Western Upper Peninsula MySTEM Network, and the Copper Country Intermediate School District. So more particularly in 2023, the Lake Superior Youth Symposium, that's the poster on the left, took place in Ashland, Wisconsin. But this event has actually been a binational event that was created to inspire and motivate teachers and students from across the watershed to become stewards of Lake Superior and the Great Lakes since 1995. So the Lake Superior Living Labs Network cannot take credit for this event, but we're happy to be supporting it going forward. And the 2025 event, we've been much more involved in planning, and that one will take place in Duluth in May of 2025. So with the Houghton Hub, there's a lot of focus on climate adaptation, food pathways, and sustainable tourism initiatives that are going to include in partners from the WUPPER is much easier to say, the Western Upper Peninsula Planning and Development Region Office, the Upper Peninsula Food Systems Collaborative, and Michigan Tech. Also looking forward to the new development of the Center for Innovation in Sustainability and Resilience at Michigan Tech. That's coming up. And the Keweenaw region is really experiencing a big growth and influx of new residents and tourism. So there's been an increased interest in that hub around protecting public access to lands and waters. Specifically, the Keweenaw Outdoor Recreation Coalition is working on that. And then finally, a big thank you in Houghton, who's thankful that all are welcome to join the people of the Heart and Keweenaw Bay Indian Community Water Walkers in their annual water walks that draw vital awareness to the need to protect and celebrate our relationship with the lake, as water is life. Well, we can do it. There we go. In the Duluth Hub, we sort of have a top and bottom for our 4 projects here. So the UMD Lab, the University of Minnesota Duluth Land Lab, and the Lake Superior College Living Lab Farm were both connected to folks. And together, even though they were separate projects, together really worked on exposing students to experiential education, supplementing their theoretical understanding of global ecology. Oopsies. There we go. And really allowed for both research and students and community members to come together really at that nexus to explore food, water, energy, and biodiversity. Then at the bottom left, we see the Northlands Solar Commons project. So this is a project that co-designed and tested a community trust ownership model for solar energy assets and a digital dashboard that would allow transparency across all those partners. And then the funds from the Sun's Commonwealth in that project will go to the Bois Forte Food Sovereignty Group for the lifespan of the solar panels, which is a little over 20 years. And then finally at the right, the Duluth Power Dialogue. This has been happening for a number of years. This year it happened yesterday, so that just recent on our minds. This is an annual springtime event that uses responsive pedagogy to help university students understand and advocate for Lake Superior watershed's energy transition to renewables. So in 2022, students designed this giant owl puppet that you can see here to represent civic voices of future generations. And so then in future years, this year and beyond, that allows then students to write scripts for the owl, which really brings in storytelling to quite a technical and political issue around energy transition. And then our 4th hub, Thunder Bay, up in the north, has really focused on building relationships. In this particular image at the top left, we see what's called the Labyrinth Walk. And so members of our hub did this walk in the first year, and one question going in, another question coming out. And then we're able to discuss afterwards to really see what folks were hoping to get out of the network and how we might continue to work together. And then a few projects here include the Climate Action Park on the top right. This is a location on the Lakehead University campus. The overview map shot we see here in this sort of light greenish color along the shoreline shows various areas that did some shoreline restoration work. So various students and staff and faculty were involved with different plantings. But in addition to that, it's now a gathering space with a fire pit, with signage that allows everyone on campus to look at and think about and how that might take place, both in the terms of the plants and the beings that are in that place, but also human actions that we might take ourselves. In the bottom left corner, we see 7 videos that were part of a sustainability story series that were created. These are all available for viewing. All of the videos I've mentioned are on our website. And so these highlighted different projects within the Thunder Bay Hub with video content that folks could learn about more. And then finally, the most recent and released yesterday project is the Lake Superior Waterways podcast. So that's available on our website. Even though it is a podcast at the moment, it's only available on our website. So check it out there, which focuses on each episode looks at a particular river or lake flowing into Lake Superior. And so each episode is named after one of those. And a big thanks to Gavin Shields, who has helped with a couple of these projects doing recordings. A big thank to Nathan, whose last have not been told. So Nathan, if you're listening, thank you so much for your help on the audio. And also to Chris Armiento, Bridget, and I suppose myself, which is weird to say, for help on the Climate Action Field School, which took place in Thunder Bay, but will actually be on the next slides. All right. So I know that's a lot of projects in a short time, but I know a lot of folks did say in their registration that they wanted to know what was happening, who's doing stewardship, etc. So hopefully this gives you some clues of organizations to look up or names or to follow up with us later and ask how to get in touch. So let's briefly overview some watershed-wide projects that the Lake Superior Living Labs Network has done. We have done 26, we have hosted 26 mini meetups, which we have now just transitioned to calling webinars because that's what they are. Again, it was a way to try to connect virtually when we're across a very large space. This is just 6 posters of many. These are all available, recorded and available on our website to view if you'd like to look at any of them. But what really was fun about these, what folks noticed about them was that we really got to either dive deep into a topic. So, and those topics are often cross-disciplinary, right? And so this is what folks really like about this network, or what I was hearing, is that they're working with atypical partners, and they're able to, you know, have space to not just be in their discipline, or not just be in their sector, or not just be in their office or their one employer's focus, right? We can cross those ideas and think a bit more fully about things. One of our biggest projects that happened was the Climate Action Field School, which we first ran in 2021. These are just a sampling of many photos that we've taken. There's lots of content around this involving 360-degree tours, some videos, and more photos and descriptions. And so what happened for this was over the course of a week, we had 10 youth, well, 7 to 10, I believe, in 2 hubs joined together locally in their hubs, so Thunder Bay and Sault Ste. Marie, and they were able to engage in on-the-ground conversations. This was still, we had a lot of pandemic protocols to follow, so you can see some masks and spacing there, even when we're outside. And so we were able to engage in sustainability walks or geocaching or learning about activism, how food relates to climate action. Both groups were able to get into a big canoe and go out on Lake Superior waters and really explore and learn that way, depending on the context of their place, of course, right? We're always thinking place-based here. And then we had 4 virtual events that connected people across the watershed. So that's our top right image here, where we see people coming together throughout the week, so that students were learning in their own places and then coming together to learn throughout. This was followed up by Climate Action Field School in 2022 and the fall that Duluth was able to host, and they really focused on bringing artists together to think about climate action and art. So that's what 2 of these images on the far right are. And then in 2023, Lakehead University, or excuse me, the hub in Thunder Bay was able to host a field school, but this time was targeted towards grade 12 students and worked closely with Superior CVI and Lakehead Public Schools to organize that. And so it was a different field school. Again, there's that iteration, that learning process where we learned from the first one and then we're able to implement. And Sault Ste. Marie Hub has also hosted Climate Action Field Schools. I don't have any photos for them, but they've been able to host that through some various coursework as well. So the Climate Action Field School has continued to ripple out in various iterations since that first one. And then this round of projects was quite fun, I would say, because we allowed our members to, we said, here are some small funds that are available. We have a mini grant program, and folks were able to apply and say, here's a project that I would like to do that involves the Lake Superior watershed and connects people across that watershed. And so they're all quite different. I will just very briefly touch on which each of them are. Again, more information on each project on the website. So the Folk School Knowledge Exchange brought together folks from both Thunder Bay and Duluth. They came down to Duluth, but also some some folk schools from other northern Minnesota locations. They were able to gather for a day and a half and really talk in person in depth about their experiences, running folk schools, challenges, benefits, operations, learning from one another in that way, and really getting together for the first time in the region. Moving to the right, the hydroponic project was run out of RAIN, or the Rural Agri Innovation Network, in Sault Ste. Marie. And so this really brought together community members, and there were presentations on how to do hydroponics projects, and I believe set up a system. So that was a nice project, bringing together a couple of different partners there. The Lake Superior Student Sharing Conference brought students from Duluth up to Thunder Bay. And those students in both places were part of outdoor recreation programs at University of Minnesota Duluth and Lakehead University. And also faculty and staff from both campuses were able to gather over this weekend conference. And so they were really able to talk about what they're interested in their programs, challenges their programs are facing, what they want to learn more about, just build those connections so that they can hopefully, continue to build those and perhaps build some collaborative programs going forward. The right image and project shows Towards Food Sheds, Reimagining Food Systems in the Lake Superior Watershed. So this was a project by Sarah Siska, who traveled around Lake Superior. This was part of her master's research, talking to folks throughout the watershed about their experiences growing food and this concept of a food shed, and how they might think in that bioregion, and what that means for different folks. Then at the bottom left, we have This Water is Life, Creative Action to Heal Bodies of Water. So this was a project by Gabrielle Pulver, also as part of her master's work. She also came and interviewed folks around Lake Superior Watershed about how they do this artwork, or really what she then decided to call creative action, and how that relates to healing bodies of water, and came to realize that our own bodies are bodies of water as well. So had some interesting learnings there. The Strengthening Northern Food Systems project was a collaboration between the Thunder Bay and Area Food Strategy and the Rural Agri Innovation Network, or RAIN. And so this had a couple components. One is the poster that you see here for a webinar that they hosted that invited various producers in the region to then share about how they are marketing or making these institutional connections for selling their products that they produce in an agricultural setting. And then also through that, we're able to collaborate on an application for a grant, which I believe has been received at this point. So that was exciting for them. And then the Justice Stories project happened in Thunder Bay and brought different community members together across 3 different workshops, looking at different aspects of justice. Okay. And very finally, the Lake Superior Living Labs Network has newsletters that are monthly, very close to monthly. Those are all available on our website for perusing. There's information in there about events, about our own recordings, just happenings in the watershed. Even if we're not hosting them, we want to get that information out as much as possible. Occasionally job opportunities or grant opportunities as they might be available. There's also some folks in the network have engaged in academic research, particularly about the network. So this particular article has been published in Challenges. Another article is currently under getting close to the acceptance end of that. And then my dissertation technically falls under this category as well. And then summits. We hosted a summit back in 2020, the fall of 2020. Our first one, and now this is our second one. We finally got our act together to get us together a second time. So we're really excited to have people here connecting. All right, so that was a whole bunch of projects, a whole bunch of pictures. I hope it was informative. I'd like to just ever so briefly just provide a summary of the research that I did in 2023 about this network, partly because folks on this call participated in those interviews and workshops, and I really wanted to have the opportunity to report back about what I was finding as it relates to our network. So data collection was completed through a steering committee retreat 3 different virtual workshops, which included 18 participants, and 19 interviews, which included 21 participants. So in all, there were 34 total participants contributing to the information collected for this data, and then used a thematic analysis for these findings right now. So the first major finding is that there were lots of benefits of being in this network. In particular, the watershed setting really drew people in and inspired them because for a lot of reasons. So that watershed setting was really orienting participants to this relevant social ecological setting. It's just always set that foundational orientation that folks found helpful because it required more holistic approaches. It required boundary crossing. It challenged settler colonialism by the nature of using this watershed that crosses those borders. The Lake Superior watershed context is much more relevant to most of our partners than other places within their geopolitical jurisdictions. So for example, Sault Ste. Marie and Thunder Bay, Houghton and Duluth have a lot more in common with each other than they do with Lansing, St. Paul, and Toronto, right? The capitals. Or even if we took other spots in those provinces or states, those hubs or this watershed, again, those are the people in those hubs, but even, let's throw out Marathon, Wawa, Ashland, Marquette, those places have a lot more in common with each other, usually, than they do with these other spaces that would technically be in our jurisdictions. The other thing about the watershed setting orientation is that it orients us to building local capacity. Inherently, it's saying, we're interested, we're in this area, we share this ecological setting, we share a social history, we share a social present, and what that looks like. And so we're building local capacity because we're doing work in the places that we live. Folks also really liked, the benefit was that we created intentional space to share, to learn, and to reflect. And folks are often we're not getting that in their regular work. At their regular work, they might show up to the meeting, they do the thing, very action driven. There wasn't a lot of time for reflection. There wasn't a lot of time for sharing or learning, particularly across boundaries. So this third point, getting people out of their usual silos, folks really loved that. They, I don't know what I don't know. So really appreciated that other folks were curious and wanting to learn and share, and that they were also wanting to engage in that. Other benefits were that folks recognize that the network's approach allows for mistakes. It also allows for complexity, which sometimes is not allowed in the places that we work in our silos. Obviously, that depends where you are, but folks really appreciated that perspective. Also, tangible-ish things is that relationships have been built. So in addition to just enjoying the approach, enjoying getting to know each other, having intentional space to connect with folks that engage in similar work, but you don't pick up the phone or write the email to say, hey, let's have a coffee, right? That space is intentionally made for you to come to it. Relationships have been built. So over the last 5 years, folks have been connecting, and those relationships take various forms and various strengths, I suppose we could say, but they have been built. That foundation is there, and we can just continue to build on them. And we've supported existing projects and developed new projects, which I have outlined previously. The findings also told us that there is room for improvement. Folks very generously shared a lot of ideas for how we could improve, which were very valid. So I've summarized them here for brevity's sake. Folks wanted more opportunities for direct connection and communication with one another, and not having to go through a steering committee, which wasn't the intention and actually wasn't necessarily the goal at all, but we realize now in hindsight, we accidentally set up the structure that way. And so we, have now in front of us a task that we can, I think, fairly easily address. But that's something that we'll be looking forward to addressing soon. The term living labs had some mixed reactions. Some people really like it. Some people really relate to the term living. The word lab is a bit more contentious. Lab tells folks, it comes with some baggage related to experimentation and how that's been done unethically in the past. And so, that's a point for thought for us going forward. some various feedback about how the governance structure should be revisited and perhaps overall structural organization. So that's something that we'll be looking at going forward as well. And then finally, it really pointed out that the processes that we have and the coordination that we do are super critical, and they are even more critical when fully virtual. It becomes increasingly important when we cannot just run into each other at the grocery store or at an event or perhaps at a coworker's friend's thing, right? So it really requires intention, both from those coordinating and from those participating, the intention to show up, the intention to be as extroverted as we can be on a virtual setting, even though we all know that's kind of hard and kind of scary, and we all act a little differently when we're on Zoom. Everyone sort of mentioned that. They know they do that themselves, and it's tough. So it takes a lot of intention from everyone. And people wanted to connect directly. Hence today's summit and the afternoon. We have been championing these connection chats for months, as we're really excited to offer the opportunities for folks to get into small groups together and just talk directly. We know we have to try harder when it's fully virtual, and so this is us trying harder, and we hope you join us this afternoon for that piece as well. So in summary, I know that was a lot of information. In summary, the Living Labs Network is saying that we are connected through the flow of water, and we are connected from our histories, we are connected from our ecological settings, and so let's take that and implement that, apply that to these other realms or themes or disciplines where we might not typically see the watershed setting applied. That helps us collaborate across boundaries. Those boundaries can take many, many forms, but that's work that needs to be done to address these complex challenges that we're facing in this century. Folks really loved that we worked with atypical partners. They were working with atypical partners, learning from them, sharing with them. It was a piece they weren't really getting in other parts of their work professional lives. It really, folks appreciated that we are challenging settler colonial norms simply by saying we're taking a watershed setting. We cross a lot of borders, and so it's just it's right up front. And people are stoked about the network. They're inspired. They're excited. I hope you are too. And they want to connect. So that's where we are today. A massive thank you. Miigwech, merci to everyone who did an interview, did a workshop, has participated in a project, has contributed in various ways. If you've contributed, you know who you are. I hate that statement, but honestly, the list is probably like 100 people. So I will not list 100 people right now. But everyone, we know you in our hearts, and we really appreciate it. And that is the end from me. Happy to answer questions or expand, or if other steering committee members have thoughts that I have just simply forgotten to mention this morning, please feel free to chime in. Thanks, everyone.
Excellent, Rachel. Thank you. Thank you so much for preparing that and for giving us the big picture. I think when we first kind of conceptualized this idea of just getting together, I mean, we're not the first to do it, obviously. There's been lots of people doing it. There's been lots of work happening that we built on, but it's amazing to see over the last few years what we've been able to do together. And to be, I think the other thing, Rachel, you didn't talk about that has been really important for me as well, is connecting with other groups and other networks. We're not the only one. And, I sometimes say, like we've talked about, are we overlapping? Do we need this? But I just, the more the better. I think there's so many challenges facing us right now, and the only way that we're going to get through them is to do it together, as you've talked about, and to figure out ways to to kind of move past these artificial barriers that keep us both separated physically but also mentally and spiritually together. So yeah, it's really great to see it all in one place, and for you to provide that overview, so thank you. So we do have about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and we do want to take a bit of a break before our next panel. So if folks have questions, comments, if you just want to I don't know, introduce yourself. You're more than welcome to. We have some time now, so I'll try to do a bit of facilitation. If folks want to put their, just because it's easier on Zoom. So if I see Heather, you have your hand up. So other folks want to put their hands up, we can kind of go through if folks want to say anything. So Heather, I'll turn it over to you. You should be able to unmute yourself, I think.
Thanks. That's amazing. All that's going on that I did not know of, and I'm excited to learn more about. This is great. I did have a question. Charles mentioned off the top that there's a transition time now. There was a grant in 2019, and now we're transitioning to other ways of doing what you're doing. Can you tell me more about that?
Charles, do you want to respond or do you want me to?
Go ahead. Why don't you go? You seem to be, I think you're probably more in the loop with everything than I am these days. So go ahead and I'll
Sure.
fill in if I feel like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, Heather. We've been thinking about it for 2 years, let's be honest. We've been trying, and that's partly why I did the visioning workshops, partly why we did the retreat. You know, all of that research has been building to try to support this. Because of life and things, it's been a bit slower than maybe we would have hoped. So our transition period is underway. We do hope to have some strategic planning meetings going forward, recognizing that, you know, this might be an opportunity also for folks to come in who are saying, this is lovely, would love to be more involved in, and that can be in a different capacity levels. So we're thinking about different models. I mean, we've considered a nonprofit model. We have not committed to that. We've considered you could call it a constellations model is what one group calls it. So we're thinking about maybe slightly different things that way. And then I think what my research is showing, but we as a steering committee, we haven't had a time to discuss or pursue 100% yet, is that you need a part-time or full-time coordinator to run this, and that position needs to be paid. And so how do you find the funds for that is, and then from there, then connections, and then basically creating a massive grant list. And then when someone says like, I want to work on X, and we say, great, these people also are interested in that. Let's get you together. Maybe you already know each other. And then we say like, great, and here's the grant list. We know of things that exist. So like, I've got the vision, you know, we all kind of have this vision. At the moment, we haven't applied for more funding, although it's certainly on our list. We've begun to pull together a list of potential opportunities, but we haven't applied for any yet as a network. That's not to say individual projects have not done that to continue in their own work. And so I think part of our invitation today also, yes, to join the newsletters, but if someone's particularly excited to say like, I want to be at those strategic planning meetings, or my organization would love to participate in that way, please let us know. We would love to loop folks in and say, yeah, come to the table for that planning piece. Charles, you want to add, or Heather answer that question? Did that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said is perfect. I just, from a personal perspective, you know, I know when I came to this area about almost 9 years ago now, I was like, how do I figure out how to like connect with other people doing interesting work and similar work? And it's hard, like the distances. Rachel, I don't think you mentioned this, but even as a group, we haven't even been able to have one meeting where we could all be in the same place, even as a steering committee, because between the cost and the COVID restrictions. And so it's really challenging. So the idea was just to, create a platform where we could figure out how to start connecting with each other more, especially those of us interested in issues of sustainability and justice and equity and settler colonialism and all these things that, you know, we're all kind of been talking about. So yeah, and then the idea was also for the network to kind of take on a life of its own a little bit, and not kind of have a kind of tight structure to it. So I think, as Rachel said, you know, we're kind of in this moment where we do have some capacity to keep a newsletter going and run the odd event like this, but we're in the process of like figuring out what comes next, and that's part of what these conversations are going to be about.
Thanks, I found that really helpful.
And I should say, like, for Heather, for you, for others, like, I mean, this network is not meant to be proprietary in any way. If folks want to use it to share events, to help or to organize things, I mean, Rachel has been the main contact, and Courtney Vaughn, who you'll meet as well. So we can always, use them to share events and figure out what role we can play.
Yeah, or if you've got a project, anyone listening, you've got a project or a thing that you want to share and get, we can just tell us, we'll make a webinar. We'll say, great, here's the thing, come learn, come chat about it. That's always easy. We don't know what folks are doing until folks tell us. So that's part of the challenge too, is knowing what different people are doing.
So if anyone else has questions or comments, you're more than welcome. I'll just take this moment to let you know that we will take a bit of a break, and you're welcome to stay on the Zoom link. We're going to use the same Zoom link for the whole day, so you can stay on, or you can log off and log back on if you want to. In about 24 minutes, we're going to start we have a panel planned called it's about setting the stage, why watersheds matter, and it's shared relationships and responsibilities for living well. And it's going to really expand on some of these ideas of what a watershed is, why watersheds matter. And we have some different perspectives from some different folks, again, from different disciplines, sectors, places, on how to think about watersheds, what we can learn from them, how to work responsibly in the watershed, how to build relationships in the watershed. And I'm not going to go through all the bios, but there's a poster on the website which has a list of the 4 speakers we're going to have, and it's going to be a bit of a discussion. There'll be some presentations. We'll have a discussion together as kind of the first part of our morning.
Sounds great. We can also, for anyone who didn't get the map directions at the beginning, I'll pop those back into the chat now. If you joined us halfway through, we are just for funsies to see where everyone is joining from. We've got a map online where folks can indicate where they're joining from. Please don't feel free to not give us your home address, but just pick a park or something that's nearby to let us know where you are. And you can then zoom out and see where everyone else is joining from. But yeah, I think a little bit of a break here sounds totally fine. The panel should be great. 2 of the projects that I mentioned earlier, folks might speak a little bit more to in the panel too, plus some others. So really looking forward to it.
Great. Okay, so just as we're about to take a break, then I'll just again say thank you so much, Rachel, for that presentation. Thanks for everyone else for being here and everyone who helped organize. And again, we're gonna take a bit of a break. We'll come back at I guess 10:30 Central Time, 11:30 Eastern for our panel, and then we'll have the series of 3 different connection chats, and then again the film documentary link will be emailed out to everyone who registered shortly. Yeah, so again, you're welcome to stay on. Just put your camera off or mute, or you're welcome to log back on in about 20 minutes. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.